bringing down drug prices. Okay. So without further ado, you didn't come here to hear me. So without further ado, let's hear it for Senator Bernie Sanders.
Coming out. Let me thank the local 47 of the Musicians Union for allowing us to use that facility. Kathleen Halal and Michael Weinstein and Zenny Cortez and Steve Dunwoody, thank you very much for your presentations. Guys, what we are here to talk about today is not just a healthcare issue, not just an economic issue. It is a very profound moral issue. It is whether or not people in our country should get sicker than they should get, or even die because they don't have enough money to pay the prices that the pharmaceutical industry is charging us. That's the issue. And I say it is time for the pharmaceutical industry to stop ripping off the people of this country. Let me tell you a story where I first got deeply involved in this issue. In the late 1990s, I took a busload of Vermonters across the Canadian border to buy prescription drugs. And the reason I did it, and the people who were with me on the bus were mostly women who were struggling with breast cancer, working class women fighting for their lives. And we went to Montreal, and we had arranged this, and they walked into a drugstore, and they bought the medicine that they needed, the same exact medicine they were buying in Vermont, in the United States. They bought it in Canada for 1/10 of the price, 10%. Wow. And I will never forget tears coming down the cheeks of some of these women who were struggling for their lives and were having a hard time paying for the medicine they desperately needed. But it was not just them at that point. Right now, if you want to hear about crazy and you want to hear about dysfunctionality, in America today, 1 out of 5 people who go to their doctor's office and get a prescription are unable to afford to buy that prescription. Talk about crazy. So people are sick, and the nurses well understand it. They go to the doctor or nurse because they're sick. They get a prescription and they can't even afford to fill it. My state and all over this country, there are hundreds of thousands of elderly people who are cutting their pills in half, which is a bad thing to do because they cannot afford to buy the medicine that they need. Our job is to tell the pharmaceutical industry that we will not continue to pay, by far, the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And it's not just Canada, it's all over Europe. And the reason that their drug prices are lower is because in every instance, the governments negotiate prices with the drug companies. Yes. Now, what we've got in this country is really quite incredible. You can walk in to your pharmacy tomorrow and find out that the medicine you've been using for 20 years has doubled or tripled in price. There is no legislation, there is no language anywhere which prevents the drug companies from charging us any price they want, and that is precisely what they are doing. The reality today is that the pharmaceutical industry has become a major health hazard to the American people. Since 2003, total spending on prescription drugs in our country has more than doubled. Now here is maybe the most important point, and that is, while millions of Americans cannot afford the medicine they desperately need, while some of them die and others become sicker, last year the 5 major drug companies made $50 billion in profit. And the top executives of the 10 largest drug companies made collectively over $300 million in compensation. So Americans die or get sick because they can't afford the medicine they need. Drug companies receive huge profits, and the CEOs of those companies get outrageous compensation packages. Now, why does this happen? Well, I'll tell you exactly why it happens. It happens because the pharmaceutical industry is one of the most powerful forces in Washington, D.C. Since 1988, listen to this. This is really quite incredible. Since 1988, they have spent $3 billion in lobbying and have made hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign contributions. They currently have 1,400 paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C. right now, working day and night to make sure that we pay outrageously high prices for the medicine that we need. Let me just give you a few examples of the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. And I want to tell you something. They are getting nervous. Tell you a very funny story. Yes, they're getting nervous, and you are making them very nervous. Thank you. And the reason that they are nervous is they understand that if we win here in California, other states in the country will be following very, very quickly. And when we talk about a corrupt campaign finance system, man, you are up against that right now. My understanding is that the pharmaceutical industry is prepared to spend up to $100 million to defeat Proposition 61. Well, they can spend all of the money that they want, but the people understand that they're a bunch of crooks and we're going to beat them. But you know, just stop and think. Here you have elderly people cutting their medicine in half. People can't afford the medicine they need, and yet they have $100 million to dump in to lying TV ads here in California. Now, when you defeat the pharmaceutical industry here, you are not only going to send a profound message all across this country that we're tired of their greed and of their profiteering, you're going to do even more than that. You're going to show that the American people are prepared to stand up to powerful corporations who are trying to buy elections. Now, I just learned something a couple of hours ago, which I thought was kind of funny. We sent out a tweet. A tweet from my Senate office, which talked about the greed of the pharmaceutical industry, and we particularly spoke about a company called Ariad, who is charging something like $199,000 a year for leukemia treatment. Well, after we sent that tweet out, their stock started to crash. And apparently their stockholders lost some $387 million. So let me say it again. This is an industry which is extraordinarily greedy, an industry that we have got to stand up to, an industry that has got to provide the medicine that people desperately need, not only here in this country, but poor people all over the world need affordable medicine. Let me just give you a few examples, only a few, of some of the outrages that are going on within the pharmaceutical industry. Mylan increased the price of EpiPens by some 500% since 2009, from $57 to more than $600. Turing Pharmaceuticals increased the price of Daraprim by 5,000% overnight, from $13.50 to $750 for one pill. Valiant increased the price of the lead poisoning drug known as calcium EDTA by 2,700% in a single year,